get started, just as a reminder, you know that these meetings are open to the public, and we have members of the public here. And portions of the meeting are both recorded and live streamed. I hear tell other people that are actually watching our meetings. Just remember, if you have to say anything, those of you who are at the table, hello, don't I expect you to be here? No, I didn't expect you. If you have something to say, just remember to push your button so we can hear you. We have a couple of judges who are here on behalf of others. We have Judge Jack Partain. Thank you. Welcome back. He's here in place of Judge Judicial. We have Judge Beryl Anderson. Great, being here for Judge Glenda Dowling of the Council of Magistrate Court Judges. We have President-elect Daryl Sutton. I saw Daryl. He's here for our immediate Judge President, Buck Rogers, who's here for our current President, Judge Jim Hodges. And we also have Judge Emery Palmer. Judge Palmer, thank you for being here. He's here for Judge Duran Safari. Yes. And we also have Judge Luke Meyer. Thank you, welcome back. Who's here for Judge Art Smith. That's everybody. So with that, let's go ahead and begin. We'll go around the room and everybody just introduce yourself and who you're with. My name is Harold Melton. I'm chair of the Judicial Council. To my left is
I'm David Nomius from the Supreme Court.
Stephen Dillard from the Court of Appeals.
Chris McFadden, Court of Appeals.
Matt McCord, Counsel with Judicial Court Judges.
T.J. Hudson, Council Public Judges.
Ed Luke Meyer, House of Superior Court for the 3rd District.
Farrell Anderson, Chief Magistrate Judge here on behalf of Judge Dowling.
Asha Jackson, Stone Mountain Judicial Circuit in Rockville.
Jeff Kite, West Cross Judicial Circuit, 1st and 3rd District.
Jim Tennyson, Superior Court, Southern Circuit, 2nd District.
Carl Brown, 10th District, Augusta Circuit.
Jack Partain, filling in for Judge Van Pelt, who's the 7th Administrative Judge.
Russ McClellan, Council of State Court Judges, President-elect.
Nancy Bills, Council of State Court Judges, President.
Stephen Kelly, President of County Superior Court Judges.
Shonda Harrell, President-elect, Council of Superior Court Judges.
Good morning, I'm Daryl Sutton, President-elect of the State Board.
Emery Palmer, Superior Court, Coweta Circuit for the 6th District.
Phil Spivey, President of the Council of Juvenile Court Judges.
Juliet Scales, President-elect of the Council of Juvenile Court Judges.
Nathaniels, Council of Municipal Court Judges.
Joya Combs, First Vice Council of Magistrate Court Judges.
Good morning, Johnny Gillis, 8th District Administrative Judge, Dublin Superior Court.
Bonnie Oliver, 9th District Administrative Judge, Northeastern Judicial Circuit Superior Court.
Tara Smith, Judicial Council, AOC. Stephanie Hines, Judicial Council, AOC. Cynthia Clanton, your Director of the Judicial Council's Administrative Office of the Courts. Welcome.
Mr. Representative. No, just say your name and then we'll bring you up.
Burpees.
Good morning, Darren, Judicial Council Administrative Office of the Courts. Just came on as a policy analyst and attorney. I'm here to help you with any of your research needs through the various councils of the courts.
Good morning, Mike Hodge, Supreme Court.
Bob Rupert, Chief Judge of Fayette County Magistrate.
Christina Smith, Deputy Administrative Court.
Jeff West, President of Florida Council of Court Administrators.
Tracy Johnson, Director of Georgia Office of Dispute Resolution and the Vice President.
Carly Socks, Georgia Office of Dispute Resolution.
Tyler Mashburn, Legislative Liaison, Judicial Council, Administrative Office of the Courts.
I come from behind this pole. I'm Sarah Warren. I'm on the Supreme Court. I'm one of the newer justices, and I look forward to meeting you all.
Keith Blackwell, I work for the Supreme Court.
Good morning, everyone.
Jana Evanson Cooper, member of the Commission on Interpreters.
Missy Talbert, Executive Director of the Constitutional Officers Association of Georgia.
Kevin Holders, Council of Probate Court Judges.
Council, Administrative Office of the Courts, and Council of the Municipal Court Judges.
Christopher Hanson, Judicial Council, Administrative Office of the Courts.
Tracy Mason with Judicial Council AOC.
Jacqueline Booker, Judicial Council, AOC.
Brad Allen, Judicial Council, AOC. John Matera, Judicial Council, AOC.
Carlos Greer, Chief Justice, Commission on Professional.
Sierra Carter, Judicial Council, AOC.
Mike Holloman, Council, Superior Court Clerks.
Jay Bland, Executive Vice President, Green Court.
Jorge Agosto, Information Technology Division of the Judicial Council, AOC.
Bruce Shaw, Judicial Council, AOC.
Bob Gray, Council of State Court Judges.
Melina Thompson, Council of Accountability Court Judges. Taylor Jones, Council of Accountability Court Judges. Carla McMillan, Court of Appeals. Jimmy Rogers, Interim Director, GPDC.
Brandon Bullard from the Public Defender Council.
Christine Hayes with the State Bar. Taylor Union, City of Gainesville Municipal Court. Amy Ford, City of Gainesville Municipal Court. Amanda Baxter, Office of State Administrative Hearings.
Robert Smith, General Counsel to the Prosecuting Attorney's Council.
Dwayne Norwood with the Georgia Police Chiefs Association. Charles Miller, Council, Superior Court Judges.
Natasha O'Donnell, Council, Superior Court Judges.
Shannon Weathers, Council, Superior Court Judges. Will Simmons, District Court Administrator, 6th District.
Wanda Lewis, 5th District Court Administrator. Kirsten Wallace, Council of Juvenile Court Judges.
Sharon Reese, Council Magistrate Court Judges.
Joe Biden, third District, UCA.
Malia Wilson, Judicial Council, AOC.
David Nixon, Second District Court Administrator.
Kathy McCumber, 4th District Court Administrator.
Jody Overcash, 7th District Court Administrator.
Richard Denny, First District Court Administrator.
Steve Farrell, 9th District Court Administrator. TJ Bennett, 10th District Court Administrator.
Well, thank y'all. Really appreciate everybody's effort in being here in person. You make us all better. We really value your participation. We're going to take the next item out of order a little bit. We have a special guest here, and he has a busy schedule. We're going to do everything we can to accommodate him, and I will turn it over to my good friend, presiding Justice Dave Thomas, for the introduction.
I'm going to introduce you to Representative Burt Reeves. You can hang out there for a minute while I tell people Representative Reeves, if you don't know him, grew up in Cobb County. He graduated from North Cobb High School. Then he went and graduated with honors from Georgia Tech and from the Stetson University Law School. He started his legal career with 5 years in the Cobb County District Attorney's Office. And now he is in private practice, where he is in a firm in Cobb County with his name on the letterhead. Burt was elected to represent House District 34 in Cobb County. It's kind of Marietta, Kennesaw. In November 2014, he just got reelected to his 3rd term. He's now one of the governor's floor leaders. He also serves remarkably on 9 committees, he told me, including some of the ones most important to the judiciary, like judiciary non-civil, juvenile justice, and appropriations. Burt is married. He and his wife have 2 young sons. But Burt is also way more interesting than your average lawyer or legislator or judge, for sure. At Georgia Tech, he served as Buzz, the Yellow Jacket school mascot, for 3 years, and was named an All-American mascot in 1997.
Peaked early.
Yeah. Bert's also a lead singer and guitarist for the band Attractive Nuisance, and he's performed on stage lead roles in theater productions of The Odd Couple and The Sunshine Boys. And the way I got to know him was about 10 years ago. He was the lead in one of my late wife's Bard shows, playing the role of Jack Bauer in Saving Private Practice. And to top it off literally, Bert's an avid mountaineer, having summited mountains including Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Rainier. Representative Reeves, we really appreciate your service as a lawyer, legislator, and particularly the work you've done over the years and continue to do to support the judiciary. And we look forward to what you can tell us about what's going on across the street.
I scribbled these out about 15 minutes ago, but thank you, Justice Namias. I really appreciated your friendship and getting to know you and value it. And I really, when I look back at that year in the Bart show, I have some great memories, and certainly none of which have left me. That was a lot of fun and made a lot of dear friends, including you. Since y'all brought up the buzz thing, I have to say this. The son of a very, very important celebrity for me is in the room right now. Jay, Jay is from the Green Court. His father was the first buzz. He invented Richie Bland. His father invented buzz, and so helped me get to my claim to fame. That's the way I see it. But thank y'all so much. I'm really honored to be asked to even be in the same room as all of you. Obviously, judges in the entire court system is what I do when I'm not down here, and I love you all. So thank you. Thank you for giving me the honor to get to come down here and talk about a few things. And I also want to say a very special thank you to a lot of you in this room and a lot of especially Superior Court judges who were so supportive of me in the last few years with the adoption bill that I carried that we finally got passed last year. It took 3 years, but I really, truly appreciate the support from the organizations in this room that stood with me as that effort, encountered some controversy, and I'm really proud that we drew the line and we stood where we stood on that. And even though it delayed its passage, we got it done what I consider to be the right and the best way. And so thank y'all for that. But this legislative session, we're off and running now. We're getting to that point of the session where things are getting really busy. We're very compact this year because we start the second Monday of January, which this year was January 14th. So this is the latest possible starting time. And then you get to that, we had the Super Bowl where we more or less took a week off to clear out from Atlanta because of everything going down. So we are much later start. We're trying to finish on April 2nd. So I say all that to let y'all know that things are going to happen very quickly this legislative session, much faster than normal. And so things are just going to go through very, very quickly. And I want everybody to be aware of that. As Justice Namias was saying, I have a new role this year. I'm one of Governor Kemp's floor leaders, and it's a really neat opportunity to get to still be a member of the House of Representatives, but also to be really involved kind of in the inner circle of the executive office. And it's a really neat perspective, and it's something that I'm enjoying. As is common with any transition, things are, the governor's office is we're off and we're running, but it's a slower start because everything's for the first time right now. And so I'm not I'm still carrying governor's bills, but not as many as I usually do, which, as Justice Namias mentioned, I'm on 9 committees, and so I'm convinced that somebody in the Speaker's office is trying to kill me with that. It's just about impossible to keep up with everything I'm supposed to be doing, much less, that other job where I make a living. But I am on both judiciary committees. I'm the vice chair and the subcommittee chairman of judiciary non-civil. That right there alone takes up more focus than probably everything else combined. But I love that role. We had last year we had some really tough bills come through that committee that I chair. We had that distracted driving bill, and then we also had the Hidden Predator Act and other things. And this year I know that we'll be busy there too. But I love that role because I'm a general practitioner, I've been a prosecutor, I've done defense work, I do civil litigation, probate work, and so I feel like I have a really good balance of perspectives for all the bills that come through there. And the same as to the Judiciary Committee. I'm able to shed light on a lot of things that we talk about theoretically that I've experienced, in my career in court. And so I'm really enjoying being on both judiciary committees. I'm also on juvenile justice, where we're hearing a lot of major legal issues. So if somebody in here in this room that has some muscle can call the speaker's office and say, hey, we need Bert to live, please do that. I'm trying to figure out how to make all this happen. But, you know, one of the reasons why, you know, as everybody in this room is aware, we're down to probably in recent history, if not all of history, a record low in the number of attorneys that we have in the General Assembly. And I think the reason why folks like me and some of the other lawyers are stretched so thin is because it's so important to have legal eyes on the things that we do and that perspective. And so, you know, we also lost Chairman Wendell Willard and Chairman Rich Coley from last year to this year. They both retired. There was almost 40 years of experience down at this place. That's unbelievable, the top-heavy experience that we lost in the House. But on all that note, it's great to be busy. The main thing that I want to say, and you've heard this before, but I just want to stress and reiterate it, is y'all's opinion and feedback on the bills, especially the ones that go through judiciary and judiciary not civil, is so important. And I know that there's a few judges of the week that are up here and sitting and presiding in the judiciary committees, but I can't stress how important it is for us to hear from you all on some of these issues that are coming up. And if there are issues with a bill, we've got to know about it. If there are things that don't seem right, we have to know about it. Even though we have lawyers on these committees, no one should ever assume that we're getting it right, because you know, we have so much on our minds, so many different concepts. It's impossible to spend the amount, there's not enough hours in a day to spend the amount of time on these issues that we can catch everything. And so we really not just need your help, we rely on your help and your perspective. So whether you're the judge of the week visiting up here, or you just are following something and you have an opinion, look me up. You know, my email's bert@bertreeves.com. That's easy. Look me up and reach out to me and let me know so that I can communicate. I can take a look and communicate it, and we can address the issue. And that's how we're able to do that, is when it's brought to our attention. So please help us with this. We value this so much, probably more than anything. And I know that I value the opinions in this room more than probably just about any other person that has an interest in legal bills that go through the House. But talking quickly about agendas, as mentioned on the floor there for the governor, and the governor's agenda this year is to really keep things narrow. We're focused on teachers and education and prioritizing the teachers' raise that we want to implement for over the next 4 years, and taking a big step this year with that $3,000 raise for all teachers. Healthcare is a focus. We really, this is controversial in some ways, but we've really taken a very, very big step looking at the healthcare matters. There's been a lot of pressure from both ends of the political spectrum on this, and I think that the governor has taken a very balanced approach with moving forward on some waivers and some exceptions as it relates to the Affordable Care Act and whatnot. And I think that this is going to benefit all Georgians, and I hope that it will be received that way. He's also very public safety, and particularly gangs and criminal street gangs. And I've been heavily involved in street gang legislation since I've been here, and that I will be carrying that legislation for the governor. Human trafficking as well. We've got some really some legislation this year that is going to move the needle more in that area than in the 5 years that I've been here. And in that, the bill has been, I think it was filed last week. We had a hearing yesterday. We are adopting, or we're putting into statute a really innovative approach that I'm very glad to say that Cobb County has been one of the leaders on with getting there's a group called CLAWS, Civil Lawyers Against Sex Trafficking, or Worldwide Sex Trafficking. And they have figured out, through the nuisance statute, how to attack some of these motels and hotels where there's a lot of this activity going on, and attempt to shut them down through the nuisance statute. but it only related to drugs, but we are looking to add trafficking and sex slavery to that concept this year that is going to really allow the district attorneys to take that approach. These cases are hard to make, and many of you know that, but there's kind of a side route that can be made through the nuisance laws that will aid them in getting these places shut down where it's happening. The speaker, I can't speak for whatever those guys in the Senate do, or guys and ladies in the Senate do, but the speaker in the House, his focus is it's a very narrow focus, really trying to focus on the issues that matter to all of Georgians and especially Metro Atlanta, as we view the political landscape of how things are right now. And I think there's going to be a lot of focus on mainstream issues from the Speaker's office in the House of Representatives. But that's all I really had to say. I thank y'all so much. Please stay in touch. And again, I just can't emphasize enough how important it is for the interaction that happens between all your organizations and legislators. One in committee or number two, one-on-one conversations are just as helpful. But if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them right now. I don't know how much time. We're in session right now, so I got to get back over there soon. Does anyone have something they want to ask me? Okay, great. Well, thank y'all. And let me know if I can help in any way.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us, and wish you well across the street. Also want to welcome a couple of folks who have joined us. Judge Sarah Harris has come in, and Judge Robert Fernie has entered the room, and I see Judge Hood in the back, so welcome. Want to swear in some folks. We have Judge Asha Jackson from the Stone Mountain Judicial Circuit, my home circuit, and we're going to have you come up in just a second and take the oath. We have Judge Russell McClellan, who's the President-elect of the Council of State Court Judges. We're going to have him come up. And also Darrell Sutton will come up. He's the incoming president, or president-elect, I should say. He's going to take the oath in the place of our immediate past president, Buck Rogers. If y'all three would come up, we'll do the oath. Yes, line you up. Okay. You would listen to the oath, and if you could 5 acts term at the end, respond by saying I do. I do swear or affirm that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent on me as a member of the Judicial Council of Georgia, according to the best of my ability and understanding. That as a member of the Judicial Council, I will endeavor to improve the administration of justice in this state for the benefit of the public as well as the bench and bar. That I will strive to improve the judicial system of this state as a whole as well as the parts. And I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Georgia, so help me God. I do. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. So with that, folks, if you've had a chance to take a look at the minutes, we'll start moving down the agenda, and now it's time to approve the minutes if you find them to your liking. If you need a minute, say so. If you love it, I'll take a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, Judge Kelly, where are you?
It has me as for Judge Stephen Scarlett, and he's been off the council. I was sitting as president, not for him. So the minutes we need to change just that.
Okay, thank you.
Move to adopt the minutes as amended.
Any further discussion? Those will stand approved. So we'll move down the agenda now. We're at item number 4. Judge Rubenthal will have a discussion about the magistrate recusal. Thanks, Judge.
Good morning. This certainly a privilege and honor to be here this morning. I am Bob Rupenthal. I'm the Chief Judge of the Fayette County Magistrate Court, and I'm here not only in that role, but also representing the Griffin Judicial Circuit. I was asked to come speak to you briefly, and I know I have 7 minutes, and I've asked Judge Ford to give me the high sign of about 6 minutes so I can wrap it up, so that I can make sure I honor y'all's time. What the issue is that's before you, that they asked me to talk about, is there is a uniform rules for magistrate court that has a particular rule in regards to the disqualification recusal process for magistrate judges. In your packet, which is on the left flap of your notebook, near the end of that packet, rule 4.2.4 and 4.2.5 is a uniform rule. And basically, if there is a motion to have a judge disqualified, or if a judge were to actually disqualify himself or to recuse, there needs to be a process to have a substitute judge brought in to either hear that motion or to hear that matter before the magistrate court. And that's what the uniform rule lays out. If I can summarize for you what it does, is it is intended to try to have a process that removes the recused judge from making the selection of his own replacement. That makes sense. That's a good thing. And so there is an honorable purpose of this rule. And basically what it says is it breaks it down into 4 steps. First of all, if there's a random process provided in the county, then that should be used. Number 2, the chief judge of that county should be tasked with the assignment of trying to find a judge to come in. If not, then we would find another judge of the same county by seniority. And then number 4, if there is no option there, then there should be a referral made to the district administrative judge, who would then find us a replacement judge to hear that matter or that trial. And that, again, that is a good rule, that has a good process, but we found some difficulties in implementing it. And basically what the difficulties were for the magistrate court was primarily time-based and cost. In regards to magistrate court, speed is a big issue for us. For example, if you're a landlord and you're trying to have a tenant dispossessed, you know, a delay can sometimes harm that landlord. I certainly want to make sure it's heard correctly, but so speed was a little bit of a problem for us. And the other thing was cost. We have extremely tight budgets in magistrate court. And if you look back at the rule that we submitted to the Supreme Court, that we drafted, in the first top portion of that, I said purpose, and this is what I drafted. I said to provide the counties referenced below, and that's the 4 counties in our circuit, a random impartial assignment process compliant with that rule 4 for assigning conflict judges due to refusal or disqualification. The counties referenced below to provide a low cost or no cost method of assignment of a neutral judge while still maintaining the purpose and intent. So what we've done is we tried to follow that rule, but we've added a change at the end, which is we still do the same thing as far as the chief judge will first look to see if that's an issue that can be resolved in county. And of course that would go by the most senior judge to the next senior. But if that's not going to happen, and that does, you know, occur a couple of times a year for us, then instead of going to the number 4 in the uniform rule, making a reference to our referral to the district administrative judge, try to find us a judge to get that all coordinated. Instead, we have a random process that you can see down in number 3 in my specifications. That's where it shows what we're doing differently. And basically what that is if you think that we're a 4-county circuit and there's Fayette, Pike, Spalding, and Upson, and I'm in Fayette, then the first time I have a conflict that applies in this type of situation, I call the Spalding County Chief Magistrate, and I basically assign her with this task. She can locate any magistrate within Spalding County or Pike and Upson to see if they can find a replacement for us. If she can't find it, then we go to the next one, which would be Spalding, or Pike first for me, then Spalding, then Upson. If that can't be solved, then we still go back to the district administrative judge. I think this is going to be very rare that we're ever going to have one of those type of situations, but it could happen. If you're the Spalding, if you're the Pike chief judge and you need it, then you'll go to the Spalding first, and then you go to Upson, and then you come to Fayette. If you are the Upson, you would go to Pike, and then to Fayette, and to Spalding. So we basically have a random situation. So my very first call, if I have a conflict, to go to the Pike chief judge, she's going to solve that case for us. The next time I have a conflict case, then I'll call my Spalding County Chief Judge. I'm out of it in regards to who is going to be replacing me or one of my judges, so that still meets the goal of having an impartial, random process. But we found it's a lot quicker and also it's cheaper because we have a handshake deal amongst ourselves. We don't charge each other. But it's certainly possible that we could end up with some type of fee-based structure for bringing in another judge. If you look at the rule that we submitted to the Supreme Court that was approved, that was back in October. And so that is now in place and functioning in the Griffin Circuit. So we're kind of at the cutting edge, and 2019 will be interesting to see how it goes, but we don't expect any problems with it. We appreciate greatly the Supreme Court's willingness to let us try this, and we think it's going to be a good solution for all four magistrate courts in the Griffin Circuit. I do have that obviously on Microsoft Word if anybody would like me to send it to them as an attachment so that you could edit or use. We think it's a good solution, especially for magistrate courts. And with that, I'm trying to stay tight. How did I do? Okay with my time? I'm happy to take questions, or if anybody wants to speak with me later or to email me, I'm certainly happy to communicate what we're seeing as the benefits. And if you'd like, we can share the Word version of that document.
So far, it's working pretty well.
It's working great, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your leadership and the folks in the Griffin Judicial Circuit. Thank you, Judge. We've asked Justice Michael Boggs to give a presentation and update on the Criminal Justice Reform Committee. Justice Boggs.
Thank you, Chief. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Good morning. As you all recall, Senate Bill 407 passed the General Assembly last year. It included the codification of many of the recommendations of the Governor's Criminal Justice Reform Council, which I co-chaired. Largely, a portion of that included the codification of existing law enforcement practices across the state concerning arrest by citation for certain misdemeanor offenses. As a result of the passage of Senate Bill 407, the provisions of that legislation passed to the Judicial Council the obligation to promulgate a uniform misdemeanor arrest by citation form, and tasked to the Judicial Council responsibilities for promulgating rules relative to the use of that form. At the request of myself, the Chief Justice formulated an ad hoc committee on criminal justice reform solely for the purposes of meeting those statutory requirements. That committee met. It included representatives of all classes of affected courts. It included representatives from the Prosecuting Attorney's Council, included solicitors, included those affected. We held multiple public hearings concerning the content and makeup of the form and the rules concerning the use of that form. And we, at the end of the year, beginning of the year, published that form and the rules concerning that form. Subsequent to the publishing of that form, which did not contain an effective date purposely, and did not necessarily need an effective date because the use of this process of arrest by citation statutorily is purely discretionary on law enforcement agencies for the four affected enumerated offenses. Nonetheless, we heard from predominantly the Georgia Police Chiefs Association concerning a request that they be given time to implement the use of that form. We wanted to be very accommodating to the police chiefs, and so I have before you behind tab 2 the committee's amendment to the rules that we promulgated, and largely those amendments are purely stylistic except for the one that suggests that the effective date for the use of the form, and this is a date suggested by the Police Chiefs Association, would be July 1, 2019. So this is an action item, Chief. I would ask for the approval of the council for the modification and amendment to these rules. If you approve it, the process would then be I would present these to my colleagues on the Supreme Court for final approval. So that is my presentation, Chief, relative to the work of the reconstituted work of the Judicial Council's Ad Hoc Committee on Criminal Justice Reform. And happy to answer questions, Chief, that we need.
Yes, thank you, Justice Boggs. The Chiefs Association had a number of issues, but they all seem to revolve around that effective date. And so I appreciate Justice Boggs and the committee's quick work on gathering and making that recommendation. That is the committee recommendation, so I don't think we need a motion on, we don't need a second. But we'll take a vote on that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Justice Boggs. And while you're there, let's move on to the Budget Committee.
You all know that one of the administrative responsibilities that I have is to represent the Judicial Council before the legislature to present the Judicial Council's budget request each year. This year, I told you before what those requests are. There are three. And in order of priority, we have requested $750,000 to fund a legal services kinship care families program. I outlined that for you the last time we met. In addition, $250,000 to fund the Georgia Judicial Gateway, a sign-on portal for purposes of funding that. In addition, $78,000 to fund court process report system services, CPRS services. We had, simply wanted to update you, this is not an action item, but I wanted you to know that I made a presentation this week to Chairman Andy Welch and his committee of the House Public Safety Subcommittee of Appropriations. I thought the hearing went well. I will tell you that there is a question from the chairman concerning a possibility of consolidating JDEX, Juvenile Data Exchange Programs, and CPRS. I've gotten with Joe Hood as recently as yesterday, and I will tell you that I know that Mr. Hood has met with the chairman. There are some significant fundamental legal reasons why consolidation of those two databases is not practical nor fiscally possible. But I know that we will have continuing conversations, but if you hear anything concerning CPRS and consolidating those data systems, just understand that we're on top of it and we're having ongoing conversations. So that's my presentation and update of the Judicial Council budget. And of course, we will move on from the House to the Senate at a later date.
Thank you, Justice Boggs, and I think it's safe to say that so far our request has been fairly well received.
I think so.
Thank you, Justice Boggs. Moving on to the Technology Committee, as y'all are aware, I do chair that committee. There are three things I want to tell you about where we are with that. First of all is the portal, which we have changed the name to the Gateway. That's up and running, receiving a good bit of activity. We are continuing to fine-tune and add enhancements to that tool that will be a source of tying the entire judiciary together for users to be able to do whatever they need to do through one-stop shopping and one sign-on. We do have that budget request that Justice Boggs referred to, and that will help maintain and develop that system further. The Rules Committee of the Technology Committee has developed civil e-filing rules. Those rules are in place. We're past the first phase. We're going to work on now on the second phase of rules, and we're also working on criminal rules. Meanwhile, CJEP, Criminal Justice Exchange Project, which is more led by the executive branch, is up and running. There are 4 counties and circuits that are in the pilot. That's going to be a really nice tool to uniformly transmit data from the point of arrest all the way through sentencing, probation, and parole, without re-entering, without having inaccuracies, and that information will be transmitted almost instantaneously. That's a really nice advancement in the delivery of our criminal justice system. That's all I have to say on the Technology Committee side. Any questions there? Okay. With that, I'll ask Presiding Justice Namias to give us an update from the Legislative Committee.
Thanks, Chief. Today is Legislative Day 16 already. Crossover Day is March the 7th, and Sunday Die is scheduled for April 2nd. So, as Representative Reed said, we're moving along pretty fast. You have a written report behind tab 5. I'll just give you a few updates on that. On the first Roman numeral post-judgment filing bill, that bill was added to a cleanup bill for civil e-filing, and it's passed the Senate and crossed over to the House already. I don't know, Judge Kelly, if you have anything else you want to add on that, or we're good? Good. Okay. The second item, the municipal court judges training hours carryover is also passed the House this week, and Judge McCord is working on that. Seems to be moving along well. The third item, the Uniform Mediation Act, they're still in discussions with dropping a bill, so there's no real update on that. The fourth item, the bill for the Council of Magistrate Court judges, the general cleanup bill for their title and including age and residency requirements has been filed in the House. The separate bill, on making magistrate court judges, elections nonpartisan, has not yet been filed, and I don't know if Judge Holmes or Judge Anderson wants to update on that.
Justice Nonius, I think you said it perfectly. Nonpartisan has not yet been filed.
And there's other action on some nonpartisan local legislation in a couple counties, regarding probate judges, magistrate judges, and other things that are kind of interacting with some of these more general efforts. The writ of possession bill, that the magistrate court judges, got our approval for, has not yet been filed. Item 6, the law library funds for Fulton, Gwinnett, and Cobb, has been dropped, but I don't think there's been any action on that at this point. Judge McBurney, do you know any more about that?
That's what I know as well. I've reached out to Representative Rich to get an update. It starts to move.
Okay.
And then to be clear, those 3 superior courts are particularly supportive of it, but the bill itself is circuit neutral. It removes a population restriction. It's not for one county or another.
Right. And we had some discussion with Chairman Fleming about that bill. It's an odd bill in that it had no effect when it was passed. It only would take effect after the 2020 census for counties of 950,000 or more, which is really was confusing even to Chairman Fleming about why a bill would have been passed. It wouldn't take effect for several years. The child, and hopefully if we get our way, it will never take effect. The child support guideline cleanup bill has not yet been dropped, but that's in the process. And then a couple other items of interest: the new judgeships for Gwinnett and Griffin circuits have both passed the House and are in the Senate. The Griffin bill has already been reported out of the Senate Judiciary Committee, so those are well along the way. And on the business court, Chairman Abstration is shepherding that, and that bill was just filed this week. If you have interest in that, copies can be made available. A couple things about that: the Georgia Business Court, under this implementing legislation, would commence operations on January 1 of 2020, but not begin accepting cases until August 1 of 2020. So we're talking about a year and a half out. And the AOC director or her designee would serve as the interim clerk in the initial stages of that court before they actually start hearing cases, rather than hiring a clerk. We offered to help provide those supportive services in the early stages before they begin accepting cases. Last point is just a reminder that the Council has granted the legislation committee is already to make decisions if things arise quickly during the legislative session. We're having teleconferences on Fridays, and most of your councils have someone listening in on today's will be at 1:30 because some of the people are here at this meeting. And I would encourage you all, under the legislation policy, if your council hears about legislation that could have even an indirect effect on other judges, please bring it up. The easiest way is on these Friday calls. If you hear about legislation that you think is affecting your council and you're concerned about it, that's a good opportunity to bring it up as well. Better to err on the side of making sure we're coordinating, and that's happening very well, I think, so far. Any questions?
Thank you, PJ. It is worth noting that that is working extremely well. I hear of all types of news and reports about legislation being brought forward to the legislative committee, and it's just helping to keep everybody informed. Nobody's getting shot down, but it's everybody's operating with their hands above the table, and we just can't thank you enough for your cooperation in that. Judge McFadden, Vice Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, will give a report on the Court Reporting Matters Committee.
Thank you, Chief Justice. As you all know, the judiciary manages the court reporting profession. The policy-making authority for that undertaking is exercised by the Committee on Court Reporting Matters. Those policies are, which is a committee of judges. Those policies are implemented by the Board of Court Reporting, which is a mixed body. There is a current vacancy on the board due to the resignation of attorney John K. Larkins Sr. And because it's an immediate opening, we have approved the replacement recommended to us by the State Bar by electronic mail, and ask you to ratify that approval today so that the new member will be able to take office when they next meet. That individual is Frederick Bold. His information is again at tab 6, and the recommendation of the committee is that his appointment be approved. Mr. Chief Justice.
That is the recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion? Materials are on tab 6. Anybody opposed? All in favor? Okay, that's done. Thank y'all. All right, Justice Blackwell and Justice Warren, with our good friend Ms. Jana Edmondson Cooper, have a report on the Commission on Interpreters. They must not have heard me call their name.
I guess not. My name's Keith Blackwell, along with my colleague and friend, Justice Sarah Warren. We are co-chairs of the Supreme Court Commission on Interpreters. Jana Edmondson Cooper is a member of that commission. She's an attorney with the Department of Labor. She is one of the leading experts in this state on language access in courtrooms and in judicial proceedings. And she has been a very active member of the commission. We are here to present, and Jana will be making most of the presentation this morning, a project that the commission undertook about 4 years ago. We got a grant from the National Center for State Courts to develop a model administrative protocol that would help trial courts administer their interpreting and language access programs and manage those. Jana has spearheaded the development of that project. She can speak to it. But I did briefly want to let everyone know the Commission on Interpreters adopted and endorsed this model administrative protocol at our last meeting. We are asking the Judicial Council to endorse it as well for use by trial courts throughout the state. When we put it through a public comment period, to the extent we had comments from the judicial branch, the most substantial comment we got were concerns that we not have a one-size-fit-all approach and that we not have another mandate come down for another program for trial courts to adopt. I want to make very clear to you all what we made clear to those who made those comments throughout the process. This was never envisioned as something trial courts must adopt. It is not considered, at least from the Commission's perspective, a mandate. We think it's a very good idea for trial courts to consider something along these lines. We also went into the project with the understanding that what works in Fulton County may not make a lot of sense in Raven County or in Toombs County, and vice versa. And so our commission was to develop a protocol that reflected best practices, but was customizable, was adaptable by local courts, and would be a good thing for them to consider as they consider how they are administering their language access program and trying to be a resource for those courts. So with that said, I will turn it over to Jan.
Gracias, ciudadanía. Muchas gracias por la oportunidad para presentar a ustedes. I see a little bit of panic, people wondering if she's going to do this whole thing in Spanish. But the little bit of panic that you felt is we were hoping this plan will alleviate for our limited English proficient individuals who have access to our courts, as well as our deaf and hard of hearing persons with hearing disabilities. I really want to make sure that we know that without the leadership that we have here in Georgia, starting at the top with the Supreme Court, our former Chief Justices, former Chief Justice Harold Hunstein, who was the Chief Justice at the time of the commission, was created back in 2001, and current Mr. Chief Justice Melton, who was the chair when I came on, and the leadership of Justice Blackwell and our co-chair Justice Warren. The commission would not be able to delve into these types of projects, and so I really on our various trial courts who day in and day out make diligent strides to make sure that meaningful access to justice is available to all of those who come into our courts. As Justice Blackwell mentioned, this has been a labor of love. For about the past 4 years, we received a grant from the National Center for State Courts and State Justice Institute. It was a technical assistance grant, which allowed us to primarily have access to a consultant, Christina Yoke, who is part of the map development committee. Ms. Yoke is a federally certified interpreter based out of California and is also a licensed attorney. And she served as a consultant to the California courts when they were developing a language access plan back in 2015. And so Ms. Yoke and the immediate past director for court office professionals here for Georgia AOC, Shinji Morikuma, and myself, we worked to develop what you all have been presented, which is the Model Administrative Protocol, or MAP for short. The MAP is composed of 2 main documents. One is a companion document, which appears first in the compile, and then is followed by a template. The template is what we call us attempting to do the heavy lifting for our courts, because the last thing that we wanted to do, in addition to not trying to come up with another mandate, was say, this would be a good idea, figure it out. So we created a template that any entity, whether it is a judicial district or a judicial circuit, or if it's a local court, they can simply fill their name into the gaps. And it creates a foundation for the different concepts and different considerations and best practices that we encourage each of our courts to consider when they are assessing their language access needs for LEP and deaf and hard of hearing individuals. The companion, and why it is presented first in the compile, really breaks down the rationale and the reasoning behind each of the sections that are in the template. And so I won't go through all of it for the sake of time, but I did want to just point out just a few areas within the that are in the template and that are broken down in the companion. So for example, if you look at page 1 of the companion, that is the table of contents, you'll see the third section there is the need assessment for early identification. One of the challenges with providing meaningful access, particularly here in Georgia, is there's a lack of data that is traditionally not been a point of data that has been captured with regards to the frequency with which LEP and deaf and hard of hearing individuals are accessing our courts, how many interpreters are being requested in order to allow courts to be able to make an informed decision when it comes to budget and other considerations. And so there is a section dedicated in the map for needs assessment and some suggested best practices as to how courts may be able to achieve that. Section number 4 discusses the provision of qualified interpreters. And the reason I stress the word qualified, there's often a lot of miscommunication on what is the rule with regards to the credentialing that interpreters need to have, and oftentimes we use the term certified. Certified here in Georgia, that is just one licensure or credential that is offered by the Commission of Interpreters. But the rule, as established by Ramos v. Terry, which is a 2005 Supreme Court case, states that the interpreter must be qualified and really sets the standard and defines what qualified means. And so the Commission on Interpreters has supported that qualified, the most qualified, are going to be those who have gone through the rigorous training that the Commission requires to become either certified, if they aren't certified, then conditionally approved, which is the tier right under. And for languages for which there is currently no national certification exam, then you see a category is available of registered. And that is again only for languages for which there is currently no national certification exam for them to fall either into the certified or conditionally approved category. Within that section 4 provision of qualified interpreters, you'll see section B, best practices. And one of the best practices that we want to encourage our courts to consider is the concept of interpreter fatigue. And that one gets a little bit hairy because we're also very sensitive to the fact that, unlike a lot of laypersons, they think they just show up to court and by magic, everything just came together, the judge just showed up, and everything goes. They can't really appreciate all the background work and administrative work that each of you does and your staff does to make sure that that docket is running smoothly. And so it's hard sometimes just to get one interpreter, and so sometimes you may be reading and you're like, oh, they're recommending more than one. But the National Association for Judicial Interpreters and Translators talks about the fact that after about 35 or 40 minutes, a concept called interpreter fatigue starts to set in, which can have a compromise on the competency and the accuracy of the interpreter. And as we know in our profession, our cases are sometimes made or broken on facts and the preciseness of those facts. And the judges and everyone involved being able to rely that interpreter is providing an accurate accounting of the testimony that is being provided. And so we talked and walked through some best practices and considerations for considering when might it be necessary, depending on the length of the proceeding, that more than one interpreter may need to be appointed, and just considerations for those types of issues. Lastly, the last part I wanted to point out under section 5, which would be strategies for management and monitoring the MAP, would be section 5C, which would be training of the judicial branch in the MAP. We want to make sure that people are understanding of the MAP, and again, as Justice Blackwell mentioned, it is customizable and scalable, because we appreciate that what works down in one circuit is not going to be the best answer for another, and everyone is going to need to be able to adapt to that. But we hope that this will again be a resource tool that will be helpful, that can either start the conversation if the conversation is not already being had for needs assessment. If you already have a protocol in place in your court, which a lot of our circuits and districts do have, then maybe it will be helpful as an evaluation tool to just kind of see where you are and if there are certain parts of the process that maybe could be improved. I also wanted to make sure that we give special gratitude to the Cobb Judicial Circuit and immediate past Chief Judge L and current court administrator Tom Sharon. They were part of our pilot project that we rolled out in November of 2017, and it was a 6-month pilot project amongst judicial circuits, and Cobb actually ended up adopting the MAP in full. They have had an adoption, and they have been using it since April of last year. They have really they already had an awesome program, but they used the MAP to enhance their program, to add taglines and other special language to pleadings that are going out regarding jury selection and other things. So we really appreciate them, thank them for stepping in and being supportive of this project, and really running full throttle, going above and beyond what we imagined could possibly happen with them participating in the pilot. So we thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? So as I understand it, the Commission on Interpreters is asking for the Judicial Council to endorse the model, the MAP, what's that model?
Administrative protocol.
Okay, model administrative protocols for LEP and sign language interpreters. And it's a very thoughtful product, and really appreciate your work. So we have a motion to endorse, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you very much. I would say this about
quick question,
Judge Jackson.
It is a very thoughtful document. I appreciate it as well, because I run into some issues with interpreters. But I wondered, is there a shortcut that has been developed as well? Because it's a lot. So is there sort of a shortcut that the bench can use when we need to take into consideration some of these really important things that you've raised?
Certainly, yes, Judge Jackson. On the Commission's website, there is a tab for documents and resources, and there are 2 documents in particular, 2 bench cards that were developed in 2015 and 2016 that are one-pagers front and back. One is working with limited English proficient persons and foreign language interpreters, and the other is working with deaf and hard of hearing persons and sign language interpreters. And that is a cheat sheet, if you will, that judges can easily use and have on the bench, or even if a question comes up from a litigant, to just have a cheat sheet that's there. And it's based on the bench book chapter that was released by the Council of State Court Judges in 2016, which many of your councils have, I think all of them, I'm not saying they all have adopted into this in some version into your own bench book. But that bench card is kind of a cheat sheet of the interpreter chapter that is in each of your bench books.
It's really good. It's what you're looking for. So you can't fight it there. How's that?
And I will add, the chapter of the bench book was authored by the sentencing counsel.
I need to say something about Ms. Edmondson Cooper. When I was chair of the commission and followed up by Justice Blackwell, I think I speak for him in this regard. We did a lot of good things the best thing we did was bring her on board. She's truly an all-star, and it's a passion of hers, and she's really led our state forward in this area. So thank you very much.
Amen.
Okay, I want to take one item out of order because one of our justices, both those folks need to be headed out. But while Justice Warren is here, I want to report that that I have created a Judicial Council ad hoc committee to prevent sexual harassment in the judicial branch of government. So I signed this just the other day.
It's a loose sheet.
Yes, it's on. It should be in the left. In the back of your. In the back of your notebook. So you'll see the order. And in a nutshell, this committee is designed to do a couple of things. One is to survey the judicial branch of government to see if there are holes that need to be filled by some form of a judicial policy on sexual harassment. Not assuming anything, but if there is a need, to figure out the scope of that need and provide some solutions that each council might want to adopt. And so Justice Warren is here. She will chair. We have asked members to agree to serve on that. You see that Judge Carl McMillan on the Court of Appeals has agreed. Judge Horace Johnson from the Superior Court, Alcovey Judicial Circuit has agreed. Our friend Dax Lopez from DeKalb on the State Court has agreed. Judge Maureen Wood from Rockdale Juvenile Court. Our friend Judge T.J. Hudson, who is here from Troutman, who will represent the South Georgia contingency on this. Judge Joyette Holmes, who's here, has agreed, and of course Judge Matthew McCord. We thank each and every one of them for their willingness to participate. Thank you, Judge Warren. And with that, we're at a point where we can take a break. 10 minutes or so. Thank you.